How many of us have stopped to wonder, how did religion begin? Because there seems to be something at the core of all religious experiences that we don't talk about. Before the rituals and the systems that religions of today have created, there was something that people must have felt or experienced in order to create that religion in the first place. And I'm going to be talking to you about that today, what that is, and what that means for us in our lives. Let us talk a little bit about the difference between the numinous and the sublime so that you might begin to notice in your everyday life these little occurrences, these little miracles that are all around you. I'm going to use these two symbols of a mountain and an altar. The mountain represents the sublime, and this was a concept popularized by someone named Edmund Burke. And he said that the sublime is actually rooted in terror, but it's a kind of delightful terror because we're in no danger when we're experiencing it. So, standing before this vast mountain that stretches into the clouds. It's partially obscured by the clouds, so we can't even see how tall it is. We're filled with this sense of awe and wonder. And we feel also insignificant in comparison to the grandness of that mountain, of anything in nature. So these sublime experiences often have to do with the incomprehensible scale, magnitude of nature. And it can also be in art, it can be in poetry, but often nature is the greatest source of the sublime because it is something that makes us feel like we have no control. And this has fueled literature, has fueled myths that talk about the the battle between nature and civilization. The Epic of Gilgamesh is all about that. It is all about how nature always conquers over our futile efforts to last, to create something permanent. So that is the sublime. Now, the numinous was a created word. Well, it is a created word by a man named Rudolf Otto, a German theologian. And it's an experience that involves both fear and fascinating. He uses this term, the mysterium tremendum et fascinans, because it is a mystery that both terrifies and delights. Ultimately, it is an experience with the presence of God, and that is why the symbol I have given to the numinous is the altar. The altar, because when we experience these, we stand at the altar of God, and this is not through religion. This is not through some ritual where we have to have these objects in order to contact God. It is meeting God in the moment, in our everyday lives. It is finding this mysterious force and presence in our lives when we are not even trying. It comes to us, and often it is a blessing because we experience something that is greater than ourselves. We experience maybe a feeling of creaturehood, a feeling that we are merely dust and ashes, that we are a part of something greater than ourselves. So I'm going to share with you this little excerpt from The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe because I believe that it really captures how one might react to these numinous or sublime experiences. So the narrator says, "Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before." Notice how these lines are talking about darkness and silence and stillness and wondering and dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. It is being in a state of mystery. It is being in a state of awe and wonder. These numinous and sublime experiences speak to experiences at the edge of our human condition. They often include emotions that are sui generis of their own kind. So we might feel this kind of fear, but it's not the kind of fear we'll feel if there was a tiger in the next room. It is an uncanny fear, a fear that we might feel if there was a mighty spirit. And that is a reference to an example C.S. Lewis uses in The Problem of Pain. The narrator in this poem then pivots into a state of existential despair, and he questions things like fate, death, and life. And he goes on to hallucinate these the scented smoke, the sound of angels, and obviously a talking raven. Ultimately, it is left ambiguous whether this encounter was real or imagined, but it speaks to the nature of these experiences. We walk away changed. We walk away sometimes knowing more about this world because we have come into contact with that greater mystery. It's slightly ironic, isn't it? We know more because we know there is so much more that we do not know. These experiences often lead us to God, and they are experiences that people have been witnessing or subject to since the beginning of time, or writing about in literature. Look at Moses seeing God as the burning bush, or Job as seeing God as the whirlwind. So in none of these examples are they seeing God directly, but through a mediated experience, through nature, through what we can comprehend, because part of God's nature is wholly other and we cannot comprehend it. So, through the numinous and through the sublime, we come into contact with that wholly other part of God's nature. So, a lot of people might say, well, these are all hallucinations. Well, are we all having the same divine hallucinations? Because these numinous sublime experiences continue to be written about, continue to be talked about in smaller circles, because we are afraid to say, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I am seeing in the world. But it's not through the lens of religion, and it's not through the lens of New Age spirituality. It's something more fundamental. So Otto says of the Numinous, there is no religion in which it does not live at the innermost core, and without it no religion would be worthy of its name. So this leads me to wonder, is there some universal truth that these experiences are pointing to? Because again, I don't believe that we are all having the same divine hallucination, the same feelings, the same thoughts, and the same beliefs for no reason. I'm gonna leave with a reflection now, and I hope that you enjoy this. I believe religion is only one way to God, but we need not visit a church. A mountain is the steeple of earth, raising our gaze to the light and the truth of all there is. And once we cross that threshold, we find the altar of God is here and now, and as it appears, so shall the land in our lives be consecrated. As it appears, soon it is gone, like the flames of the fire, always moving. Though it is lucky, we cannot have what we ultimately desire, because the flames of that fire will burn, and burn as the world will when it ends, before it begins all over again. Here's my little reflection, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you better understand the numinous and the sublime now. I will note that not all sublime experiences are pointing to God, but I do believe that sublime experiences are transcendent in nature, by nature. So that is my those are my thoughts on the numinous and the sublime and how they can bring us closer to God, because I believe it is through the simplest moments that we meet God. It is through silent prayer, through contemplation, and we don't have to be the most well versed in all these religious texts to have one moment where we are so encompassed by the love of all there is that we are changed forever.